Thanks so much for the opportunity to contribute. I have a background from advisory. I led an agency for Ogilvy in New York. From leading a large marketing operation, I was the chief marketing lead at Royal Mail. And prior to that, I was the operations lead for a large food business. So I've got quite a unique set of perspectives. And more recently, I'm spending my time chairing customer experience and marketing events for the likes of Informer and Clarion and Vibe, people like that. It's given me a unique perspective, though, around what it is that marketing leaders are actually doing to respond to this geopolitical uncertainty that we're facing, these new technologies that we're trying to wrestle with. How do you actually do that? How do you build the resilience? And we'll probably talk about that. How do you build the trust? I'm sure we'll talk about that. How do you actually make sure that your organization is taking advantage of these things and not being left behind? So that's what I'm doing, coaching organizations in that sort of area just now. Yeah, so how do you actually show the business outcomes from experience? That's the issue. If you've got technology, you've got anything, basically what you're going to be doing is wanting to show the impact of that investment. Now, customer experience initiatives are no different to anything else. You've got to be able to show that if you change this experience, it's going to result in this improved business performance. And if you don't have that, then arguably quite rightly, you don't get the investment dollars to support that. So you've got sales improvements, operations improvements, technology improvements, all these things quite rightly challenging senior leaders for that marginal dollar. So you need to be able to show that experience improves business outcomes. Now, maybe a couple of years ago when things weren't quite so challenged, weren't quite so tight, leaders were prepared to maybe give the benefit of the doubt to some of these more customer-centric initiatives. But that's gone. That's gone. So your challenge now as a senior leader is to start, even if it's a small pilot, to actually find a place where you can make a customer-centric change, where you can show an improvement in business performance by changing the experience, to pilot that and then basically show the organization it's worth piling more dollars behind it. And I've got a tip for that. My tip is to find somebody in finance or the organization folks who look after investment appraisals, grab them and get them involved in your experience or your marketing initiative and say, I need you to work with me to be able to show the business outcomes of investing or changing in this particular area. Get those folks involved from the outset, and that means the evidence that you do get will speak more loudly, clearly, and credibly than just you saying this on your own. So get those folks involved and get them to actually be part of the investment appraisal process. So why is trust so important? Trust is critical nowadays. It's always been important, but I think if you're going to be able to operate online, if you're going to be able to use some of these new tools, then you need to be able to get folks to trust you to complete the whole transaction, to actually trust you to share details with them and so on. And the lack of trust is chronic. In some sectors, I've been working with US retailers, it's been reducing by 6% per annum since COVID, which is a massive reduction in trust. So you need for that, almost like the lubricant for online activities, especially if you're going to be using some of these tools, which are going to be representing themselves as you, as your organization. So what are the sorts of things that you can do to actually build trust? Well, firstly, you need to be measuring it. You need to be measuring that your trust is improving or deteriorating and why. So folks use things like Net Promoter Score or Customer Effort Score. Would you recommend us to a friend, or how difficult was it to do business with us? Those scores are already well established. More recently, some of the leading organizations in this area started to use Net Trust Score. Does Coca-Cola always have my best interests at heart? Same 0 to 10 point scale. And you ask a supplemental question, why did you score that way? As somebody that either really trusts us or really doesn't trust us? And try and get a handle on what it is that you're doing that's either reducing or increasing the trust that you have with your organization. Now, the really good thing about Net Trust Score is it has a much tighter correlation with future business performance. So it's a good predictive measure, and you can use it with customers, with colleagues, and with partners. So it works with all those audiences. So trust is critical. It's a critical enabler, and working out how well you're doing in terms of your trust with your key stakeholders, that's going to be key. And find out why. And it's the smallest things typically that actually can either build trust or erode trust. So how, given all these uncertainties, people shouting for attention, how do you genuinely differentiate your product, your service, your organization? And I haven't got the magic answer to that, but what I can do is suggest how you can stop damaging yourself. You know, organizations spend a shed load of money on appointing new staff, doing marketing campaigns, spending money on social media and whatever. And how much more powerful would that be if they're all aligned behind a common understanding of our purpose, a common understanding of our intent? So the organizations that seem to do well are those that have been really clear in terms of our North Star. What is it we stand for? Why are we here? What's our purpose? Yeah, and they're making sure everything is lined up behind that. Let me give you a practical example. If you've got that purpose clear, if you've got that North Star clear, whenever you announce a new appointment, the HR lead makes sure they're referring to that. We're putting Frida in place or Phyllis in place because they've been exemplars of these behaviors. People notice stuff. It's not that they don't notice it, it's that they do. And if people are seeing people elevated as a result of following and aligning with these key principles, then others will want to be part of that. If you're doing communications, make sure that they're aligned behind those key principles and key purposes. And use these tools like ChatGPT and Claude and so on to drag all of your web content, drag all your social media content and compare it with that purpose, with those mission, vision, values, and see what level of dissonance there is. And I promise you, you'll be horrified, because most organizations have not aligned all their communications, have not aligned all of their outbound activity behind a common understanding of purpose, what we stand for, tonality, and so on. It's all over the place. So one of the things that you can do to differentiate yourself is be really clear. Everything we do is going to be nailing these key principles. Yeah. Now, I'm sure there'll be things, other areas we'll come to talk about resilience and responsiveness and so on, but just not shooting yourself in the foot is a pretty good place to start. And it doesn't actually cost you any more in terms of new campaigns and so on. Just making sure that everything you do is aligned. That gives you quite a differentiation compared to other organizations. So building a clear North Star, how do you go about doing that? Is it something new that you need to create? Well, oftentimes it's there, it's visceral, it's already inside the key leaders of the organization. It's about, though, what it is we're leaving behind, what it is we're not doing, and the things that we're going to, as a leadership team, going to really agree that we're going to focus on. So that requires, and it's senior leadership, senior leadership to actually say, this is what our key purpose is, this is what our mission, vision, and values are. And those things are usually in place. What's less often in place is, and this is how we want people to feel. We want people to feel inspired or recognized or valued. Right? These are feelings that we're wanting folks, whether they're customers, colleagues, or partners, to feel every time they interact with us. And then deliberately designing that into our processes and our changes. Now, having mission, vision, values, the feelings that we want folks to have, and then the leadership behaviors that we're going to be getting behind and supportive to deliver those things. Getting all that onto one page is critical, so that you can get it laminated and shared and everybody has that in front of them. They can see this is what our leadership wants our business to actually do and say and feel when it's out there talking to customers, colleagues and partners. So it's about senior leaders actually writing this down and deciding these are the things that we are and the things that we're not, the things we're going to grab, the things we're going to leave behind. And I'm happy to share a template anytime folks want one, but these are usually the challenges getting senior leaders to sit down and do that. Now, if you can't get your senior colleagues to sit down and do that, I've seen it done well a couple of layers down in the organization. This was a business that we all know, very good customer experience practitioner, was at AIG. She went to Amex, AIG, she ended up at LinkedIn. And the LinkedIn team was very focused on sales. They weren't interested at all in building a North Star. So this individual said, well, you know what? I'm going to get my team to build a North Star. So they went into a room, big pot of coffee, shut the doors, and they worked out, this is our mission, vision, values, purpose, how we want people to feel, yeah? And they laminated that, and every time any of the team members were in a meeting, they said, well, can we use this to help maybe clarify the purpose of the meeting, what we're trying to achieve, and so on? And folks tended to find it really useful. So they gave their colleagues a copy of that laminated sheet, and they had more printed and more printed. And over time, lots and lots and lots of folks in the LinkedIn business had these laminated North Stars in their day books, to the point where senior leaders started to see these things turn up in the senior leadership context. At that point, they asked her, what's this all about? And she got the senior leadership team to actually do a proper North Star exercise. So that's an alternative. It's far better, far easier, far more potent to get senior leaders to do this. But in the absence of that, if they focus on something else, then get your team to build an North Star and start to live it. Start to live it. Reach. If you're a marketing lead in a large organization, you're wanting to influence a whole bunch of things. And typically, you've got folks that are in your team that can go out and be part of groups or committees and make sure that your voice is heard around the organization. But lots of organizations, usually with not much science, are reducing headcounts, and marketing have got to take their share of those as well. So you've got less opportunity to actually ensure that your voice is being heard around the organization. So what can you do? In practical terms, you've got to work smarter. And building things like playbooks, this is the marketing and strategy playbook for the organization. That seems to be a smart way of ensuring that your voice is heard, even if you're not in the room. So building a playbook, building the North Star we covered earlier on, that helps to ensure that your voice is heard around the organization. But also, my strong advice is you need to be building resilience for you, for your team, for your organization. And just to note all these incredible challenges we face from a geopolitical point of view, challenges and opportunities we face from a technology point of view, building that resilience personally, for your team, for your business, that's a way of ensuring your reach across the organization, because everybody is quite understandably feeling a bit exposed just now. So using some of your softer skills, which tend to be better developed in the marketing area, listening skills, empathy skills, collaboration skills, using those skills, showing folks that they actually help us to be more resilient, more responsive, and also fessing up with your team and saying, do you know what, probably over the next 3 to 5 years, we're probably going to need a third of you or a fifth of you. But, you know, whilst you're with me and my team, I'm going to be preparing you to make sure that you're able to take advantage of these opportunities from these new tools and approaches. So don't try and hide it. There's a large contact center organization that had 80 plus major contact centers around the world, and they were losing their first line supervisors, just the people that they needed to hang on to be agile. And they said, you know what? We can't afford to lose these folks anymore. We need to be honest with you. This is why folks are leaving. They're leaving because they can see the writing on the wall. If you stay, we're not going to hide the fact we're only going to need 10% of you in the future. But those that stay, we're going to help you to build that muscle, that expertise to make you resilient in the future as part of the compact from staying in the organization, to help individuals and teams in the organization to build resilience. That's key at the moment, I believe.